What's going on, guys? Drew Danger back in the game. Glad to be here with you guys. Ready to talk to you guys about the next video. I usually try to do two videos on Sunday for you guys, so let's hit it off with the second video. This one is a very special video. I kind of thought about and didn't want to do was that's why I put these two together. These two subjects, I'm kind of like, oh well, we'll see. So here we are. So let's get into it. I'm not rambling. Let's get down to it. Austin St. John, the original Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. Okay? Known as Jason Lee Scott on the show. And the Green Ranger, Tommy Oliver, Jason David Frank, or JDF. Whichever one, or ASJ for Austin St. John. Okay? So, let's get into it. The reason I'm bringing this up is there is a dispute and a fight, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with that was a fan of the show, that we found out about years later, that both the actors did not get along, and there was a lot of issue between the two guys. And this is a very touchy subject. The Austin St. John fans and the Jason David Frank fans go head-to-head about it. And I'm going to give you guys my take and my opinion over what I think about the whole issue. Now, I have met all the Mighty Morphin cast members except for Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Ranger, Kimberly Hart. She's the only one I haven't met. I got close one time, but things didn't work out and I didn't get a chance to meet her. But I've met everybody else. So let me start. So the original Red Ranger, Jason, Austin St. John, the original Black Ranger, Walter Jones, who played Zach, David Yost, who played Billy, the Blue Ranger, Twee Trang, I want to make sure I get that right. My voice is getting stuck over here. Let me get some water real quick. Twee Trang, and you guys are wondering, wow, she died super young, so you got to meet. Yes, I did get to meet her. And of course, I met Jason David Frank, Green Ranger, who was my favorite. And still is. So I can tell you guys from meeting all these guys and girls, they were all cool. The only one that I had an issue with was Austin St. John. When I was a kid, I met him when I was about 12. It was right when they had just left the show. And they had just done the movie. The movie had just come out, and they weren't in it. And at Victor Valley College, they had done a panel discussion for the kids. You know, you could buy tickets at KB Toys. This is how long ago it was when KB Toys was going. And it was Austin St. John, Jason, the original Red Ranger, Twee Trang, Trini, the original Yellow Ranger, and then Walter Jones, Zach, the original Black Ranger. And they were all there, and they were all... Zach and Twee were very sweet and kind people. Not that Austin was mean or anything, but he seemed like he had a lot on his mind. And as I got older, I heard his story. So I'm like, all right, he probably had things going on and decisions happening and things like that. So that's my take on those three. On Austin, really, was that when I had asked him a question, I got on the microphone and asked him a question. He was kind of like, and like he didn't really want to be there. And Twee and Walter were fantastic. Whether they wanted to be there or not, they saw that it was like, guys, we're talking from age probably 1 till probably about a good 13, 14. The oldest person there was probably 14 years old or 13. So we're all super young kids. So when you're around kids, man, especially when you got this whole superhero thing going, you kind of want to make sure that you really handle yourself well, because kids are very impressionable. Like myself, like when I saw how Austin kind of was, it really kind of put a sour taste in my mouth, because I was a fan of him on the show. He was my second favorite guy. And after that, I never looked at him the same, it was kind of like, I don't know. Maybe he was having a bad day or whatever, but when you're a young kid, you don't really think about that. When you get older, then you start going, well, maybe you had a bad day. So when I was older, I was like, it's fine. But as a kid, it did kind of, push you the wrong way. Um, and that was my take. In Austin, my only interaction, I haven't seen him since then. I was almost at a convention that he was at, but I didn't get a chance to go to it. Um, Now, briefly, let's get to Jason David Frank, my dude. And not just because he was my favorite Ranger. There's a story. When I met Jason David Frank, I met him about 2.5 years ago for my first time. I was super excited. Okay, prelude to that, I auditioned for Power Rangers when I was 12 years old at Brian and Rotman Studios. So I believe at the audition it was for Mighty Morphin. What was left of that? It was VR Troopers, and I believe Masked Rider, and maybe something else, Sweet Valley High, a couple other shows Savant Entertainment had. They were looking for youth talent. They used to do casting calls out in California that would go out through everyone's mail, and if you had a kid that was that in that age bracket, you could go down on I think it was on Sunset in Hollywood, and there was a huge line. It was like, if I were to give an estimate, it was probably like about 10,000 people. It looked like it. It was huge. Like, it took hours for us to get in. I think we waited in the line for like 4 to 5, maybe even 6 hours to even audition for the show. So I auditioned for the show. I got the gig, and then the agent went over to my dad and said, "Hey, you have to pay an agent fee and working fees and all that stuff, all their fees." And my dad was like, "I'm not paying you guys anything. All right, we're not doing this. We're out of here." And so, of course, I was a little heartbroken because I thought I was going to be on Power Rangers kicking putties in the head. So we went home, and that was my stint with the Power Rangers. But you saw, like, it was at Brian Rotman Studios, and they had Steve Cardenas that replaced Austin as Rocky DeSantos. They had his autograph. They had Jason David Frank's autograph, and their pictures all over the wall. And Mario Lopez signed an autograph for you as you were leaving, and he was very nice, very polite, very humble guy, very cool. And that was my experience, auditioning for the show. So going forward, I meet Jason David Frank. I get up to him, and I tell him about how I auditioned at Brian Rotman Studios, which is the same studio that hired, all the Power Rangers. And he thought that was great. He really enjoyed the story. He was very nice. And the reason I'm pointing this story out is because when I went to that convention, guys, we had just moved out to Colorado at the time, and we had spent all kinds of crazy money. We had the money together, but it went like water, man. Like you drink water and it's gone. Thousands of dollars just gone. Big stuff we had to handle. And we got down to the convention. We were driving down, and we looked in the bank account, and we said, "We got no money." I said, "Oh no, we don't have any money." And I said, "Well, we're already here, so we might as well just take the tickets, go inside, walk around, say hey to people." I actually got to meet Carl Weathers at that convention, but I couldn't get any autographs. I couldn't get any pictures because, they charge, and I didn't have any money, unfortunately. That's not how I planned that day going, but sometimes, hey, life happens. It is what it is, and so you make the best of it that you can make out of it. So I meet Jason David Frank, and I talked to him, and I said, "I just wanted to share that story with you, man. I really appreciate everything you do. I'm one of your biggest fans. You really helped me when I was a kid. You really inspired me to study martial arts. I was already doing it prior to Power Rangers, but, you really taught me to really kind of really think about where I wanted to go with it and things like that. And I got love for you and your family, and thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to talk to you." And he stopped and he looked at me, and he pulled out these autograph cards that he signed. And he said, "Here, man, this is on me. Don't worry about it. I want you to have some autographs, man." And he says, "Your wife have a camera? Or you got a camera?" I said, "Oh, yeah. He said, "Let's do a picture. It's on me, man. Don't even worry about it. It's on me. Thanks for coming out to see me." And he took as many pictures until we got it right, and he was just patient, cool, calm, humble the entire time. And he made sure that you had a good time. And I didn't ask him to do any of that stuff. He just did it on his own. And that's my take personally on both of those guys. Now, I will have to meet Austin now that I'm much older. in another setting to kind of give another crack at it. But I was a fan of both of them on the show. Yes, Jason David Frank was my favorite Ranger, but I respected everyone on the show. I was cool with it. But there seems to be a feud between the guys. And the other reason I wanted to talk about that today is because let's talk about the facts. Not so much opinion. We'll get into opinion as well, but we want to talk. Let's touch on the facts of the nature. Okay, so they did the show, and they had problems from the get-go. Now, Jason David Frank says when he got on the set, he went over, tried to shake his hand, and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And Austin was not too big on him from the get-go. And then Austin, when they were on set, apparently made up some stories, and he was embellishing some things. And Jason David Frank really didn't appreciate that, but he kind of let it slide. They were working, sometimes when you're at work, you just kind of bite the bullet. They did that. And then the union thing happened, which, if you guys don't know, the reason why Austin, Twee, and Walter left the show was due to pay disputes. They were paid $620, if I remember correctly, every 2 weeks, or sometimes they may have forgotten to pay them. And that's for a show that was making $1 billion at the time. And they were paid ridiculously bad. So I understand it was not a union show. And for you guys that don't know, I worked on film, so I could tell you about union. Union, when you become a union member, they have to give you certain pay. They have to make sure certain conditions are done and that you are safe. And these conditions are safe. They have to do that, or else, threat of lawsuits and things move in motions, and there's no really big dispute, that you could get a lawsuit, because if they broke those SAG union rules, there's going to be a problem, and you get a union representative to come down there and shake the tree. So they were not union, which means they could get fired at any time. Anything could happen like that. So they fought to get union, which I respect. But the other three were probably on the fence. I mean, I wasn't there, but from what I understand, they were on the fence about maybe not, and Jason David Frank's recollection is, hey, I didn't want to leave the show. Once I was back in, I was fine with the show. I made money off my karate studios and other things. So money wasn't really an issue for me. So I didn't mind staying on the show. If I understood if people wanted to go and do something else, I didn't disagree with that at all. I was cool with it. But I wanted to stay on the show a little bit longer, and so did Amy Jo and David Yost. So we stayed on the show. But Austin says that he tried to gather all of them together, and that they were all 6 of them were standing together strong, that they were going to leave the show if they didn't get the things that they wanted. And then when they went to do it, only 3 of them came, and the 3 of them didn't, and they backed out, and that's what he says. So Jason David Frank says, we were not 100% in agreement, because we wanted to stay on the show. They wanted to leave the show, due to the disputes. And we understood it, and we supported it, we respected it, but we wanted to stay on the show. And Austin says, oh man, they backed out on us, and they didn't want to stand with us when we decided to walk out. So there's 2 stories. The truth, I don't know. I studied it, and there's just those 2 stories. So somewhere in the middle is the truth. Who knows? Honestly, I don't know. A lot of this, guys, we have to realize as fans is we have to step outside of the show. A lot of people go, not just Austin St. John, they think he's wearing red spandex all the time. Like he's a real life superhero, in that way. Yes, he was an EMT and things like that. I'm not discrediting that. I'm saying, people look at him like the show's still going and the show's real. The show's not real. It's a fictitious show that we enjoy. So their lives do not reflect the lives of those characters, So we have to keep that in mind, at all times. Because there's a lot of people like, oh, Austin, he was my favorite on the show. And because he was my favorite on the show, he can't do anything wrong. Dude, that was a show. He's human. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to do things wrong, And that's just what it was. The other thing is martial art records. Okay? there was a lot of dispute between martial art records. Now, Austin St. John's record, he studied, I believe, kickboxing, taekwondo, and maybe one or two other things. And then when he said he went overseas, he learned some combat and something. I'm guessing some Krav Maga or some sort of combat techniques over there, Systema or whatever. I don't know. Um, he's talked a little bit about it, but the funny thing is, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's funny, but it's just weird, really, is I've never seen a record online that you can look up and you can check to see, because he says he holds belts in these systems, and I don't know. I've never seen the proof. Now, on Jason David Frank, you can look up his entire record. His entire record. And not only that, for you guys that don't know, he just received, I believe it was last year, year before, the same title as Chuck Norris in the martial art community. So he's all in the community. You can find out he did MMA fighting as well, for you guys that don't know. And you can look up that record. You can look up all his fights, dates, time, places, when and where on Wikipedia for free. You can type it on your phone right now and find everything you need to know. So that's what I'll say. In my standpoint with the facts, Austin St. John, a lot of his stuff you can't look up and find out and study on your own, even without, watching videos with him. You just can't look it up. So everything he says is just coming from him, which it could be true. I'm not discrediting that. I just don't know. But here's the thing. Jason David Frank, everything he's done, you can look up, you can find video of it, you can find his records, you can find everything, and not just, I said video with Austin St. John, but it's video of him just discussing it. With Jason David Frank, it's video in the 90s of him doing it, and then now of him doing it. You can see his schools and how he's done well for himself and all that stuff like that. So you can literally see that. On Austin St. John, he did go overseas. He did do the EMT thing, and then did the medical thing in the military. I believe he did some fireman work at one time as well. So I'm not discrediting that. I mean, that's legit. I get it. So that's my thought on that. As far as let's get into shape, Jason David Frank is in phenomenal shape. You could tell he works out every day. He's still training people. He did the MMA thing. He's still going over to see Master Toddy in Thailand for Muay Thai, who's one of the best Muay Thai trainers on the planet. And he's one of his best students, and his wife's a student there too. And you can see the video on My Morphin Life. They go out there and they do the whole thing. Austin, let's just be real about things. I've never seen any footage or anything like that with him doing anything like that. As a matter of fact, let me get down to it, guys, the brass taxes. I've never even seen him fight on camera in recent times. Like just doing some demos, and stuff like that. I've seen Jason David Frank do so many demos, I can't keep track. I've seen him go, like I said, to Master Toddy and go train out in Thailand and lay some serious power out of those kicks, man. He's got some powerful kicks. He's got some of those powerful kicks I've ever seen. I haven't seen Austin just even kick a bag in the past, let's say the past 10 years. I haven't seen him kick a bag or anything. And he has not been physically in the greatest shape, So that's the statistics on that. If you put them next to each other, Jason David Frank has more to look at is if you want to look up his history and what he's up to and see if he's still fighting, is he still training, is he still doing this, you can look it up and you can find out an answer in a second. Austin, you can't find out anything. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if he's keeping a secret due to maybe some military contracts. I don't know if he just doesn't talk about it. I don't know. All I know is it's kind of weird. Now here's the kicker in the story. I recently saw an interview with Jason David Frank where you guys know they just did the Power Ranger movie a couple years ago, the reboot or something like that. I didn't enjoy the movie. I only enjoyed it when I got to see Jason David Frank and Amy Jo in the movie. That's what I was looking for, was the original Rangers. Anyone that volunteered to do the movie, I was game to see that, and that was cool. Even though they were only moving for 2 seconds. But Jason David Frank says at the premiere, Austin was there. I talked to him and I went over to him and said, hey man, I've been wanting to talk to you. He wanted to bury the hatchet. He wanted to work out everything. He wanted to have the type of discussion with him. And he said, Austin just told him, he said, no, never. I'll never talk to you. I don't want to get along with you. I wanted to stay the way that it is. It was something to that effect. And that blew my mind. I said, man, look at this. These guys are in their 40s, man. And Jason David Frank puts his hand out to bury the hatchet, and Austin St. John won't even do that. Now, that is the thing that you'll get from me on this video that is not right. As a martial artist, as a man of honor, and as an older man, they're not kids anymore. As an older man, when a man extends their hand and tries to make it right with you and really wants to work on that and sincerely wants to fix something, you should listen to what he has to say. And if it's legit, bury the hatchet. Okay? Bury the hatchet. This dude did not even care to bury the hatchet. He just wanted to keep it going, and he could care less. You can't tell me this man sleeps well at night, knowing that he had that type of attitude, knowing that he had that type of feeling, that much hatred and resentment towards this man. You were 18, 19 years old when you did the show. Austin was. Jason David Frank was about 22, 23, around there. Okay, so all these years go by. I'm 10 years old or something when the show came out. I'm now almost 40 years old myself. I will be in the next 2 years. And you haven't buried the hatchet because you have a hang up. That says a lot about Austin St. John's character right there, man. A lot. That he's not willing to sit and be a decent human being and act like an adult and sit down with somebody and just be done with it. If you can, or at least have a discussion. He wasn't even interested in that. So that's the big kicker in this whole discussion that I have to say about Austin St. John, is I don't think he's that cool, guys, because anyone that, like I said, that does not sit down and try to bury the hatchet and do right by people in their lives and live a better life. Because, guys, here's the thing. Forgiveness is very important. Forgiveness is not for the other person, so to say, in a lot of ways. It's for you. It's so that you can move forward. You can move better. You can do better in life, so that you can evolve and you can change and you don't have anything holding you back. Because if you hold on to that hate and you don't properly forgive it, it just swells in you and it messes up your life and it does all sorts of things, and your life just never evens out and things aren't correct in your life. So I would tell people, look, if you haven't done that in your life's going to be a little chaotic. So his life is not going to sit right, man. It's just not going to do well. And I did see that he was back. Austin St. John was back on Power Rangers. What was it? Beast Morphers? He showed up on the show, and that's cool, and I was like, oh, there he is. But for over 18 years, he said no to the franchise. So my question to you guys is, if Ham Saban and Shooky Levy and all those guys that run Ham Saban Entertainment, if they put their trust in Austin St. John alone to carry the franchise for all these years, would the franchise have been as successful as it is today? My answer is simply no, because he didn't do any work. They couldn't get him to do anything after the Zeo thing and the Turbo movie thing. And then he was out, and that was that. But Jason David Frank made sure that the franchise stayed alive. He's the reason why the franchise is alive, guys, because he was the one that kicked off the conventions. And he told the other guys and girls, hey, come with me down to the convention. Let's get you guys started. And because of that, the franchise stayed alive. These guys were still working. These guys were still involved. So give the man some credit, because he really made some things happen. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was Austin St. John really judges Jason David Frank on being the Sixth Ranger with the shield and the special powers and all that stuff like that. And there's an interview, you can look it up online with Austin St. John. All you have to do is type in Austin St. John as the Gold Ranger. In this interview he does himself, where he says, now I got to be the Sixth Ranger, and I got to have a shield, and I got the pay, and I got to sit by the pool and show up, when they needed me, and then I got to just hang out and do what I wanted to do, and I loved it. And the very things that he accused Jason David Frank of doing were the things that he ended up doing, and he just went wild with it. He loved it. He thought it was the greatest thing. So it's funny because then he kind of contradicts himself. And then when you ask Jason David Frank about it, he says, look, I just auditioned for the show, and whatever they gave me is whatever they gave me. And I did the show. They said, you're not going to be on the show for long. You're only going to be on the show for this long. And he said, okay, cool. He did his episodes, and then he was done. But then due to myself and other kids writing letters saying we wanted him back on the show, he was actually doing another show called Cybertron, which became VR Troopers. He came back on the show. And like he said it clearly. He's like, look, I didn't want to be the leader. I just wanted to be on the show, and I just did the show. That's it. He's like, if you need me, you need me. If you don't, you don't. And I was cool with it. I didn't want any special anything. I didn't want to be the leader. I didn't want to do anything weird. I didn't want, to have any power over anybody. I didn't want to be paid better than anybody. He was just like, I just did the show, and whatever they paid is whatever they paid. And wherever we're going and tape is wherever we're going and taping. That's it. So he leaves it very, very simple about the matter. He tells you the whole story, but it's very cut and dry with that. It's cool. But Austin, in my opinion, personally, don't take it the wrong way if you're a fan. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. He seems a little two-faced, guys. Like, he says one thing and he does something else. And here's the thing. Jason David Frank, in recent times, has never name-called or said anything bad about Austin. He's told the story, and he's left it there, and he's left it with respect and decency. Austin calls him a D-bag all the time. The last interview I just saw he did a week ago, I believe, maybe even less than that, he called him a D-bag. And he says that martial artists with long hair, because Jason David Frank used to have the long hair, he says that's a B grip, and he uses that, and he can't stand that, and he's talking to a fan and saying this. So it's weird, because then Jason David Frank, we all know, did the challenge where he's like, well, come out, let's do a professional fight. If you want to fight and you want to get all your aggression and anger out that way, we can do that. I'll set it up, man. We can get a fight going. We can get in the cage. We can do it. And Austin never responded. So he talks all this stuff, but he doesn't want to step in the ring and step up to it like a man and then just deal with it. Either talk it out or get in the ring and duke it out. Martial artists know. We know. Like, we can talk this out, or we can get in the ring or behind an alley somewhere or somebody's backyard, put on some gloves or no gloves, whatever you want to do. We can go head to head with this and then get it behind us. He didn't want to do that. So that's my take on the Austin St. John, Jason David Frank thing. And the winner is Jason David Frank, because he's a stand-up, abiding dude. He's legit with what he says. I've met him. I can tell you. He's a good dude. I'm sure everybody has their difficult days. I'm sure he does. He's human. But he really tries to live up to that. And Austin's just, he's in space somewhere, guys. I don't know. He's double-faced it. And until he makes his life right and sits with him and acts like a man and has a proper adult discussion and gets it behind him, or gets in the ring and hashes it out that way, he's never going to move forward. And it's going to be kind of messy till then. But it's not Jason David Frank's fault. He's done all he can do. So he's been upstanding. So I applaud you, Jason David Frank, for being a good dude and trying to do your thing right and trying to get things done well. You can't make everybody like you, and you can't make everything work. Anyway, that's my Power Ranger discussion. And I just wanted to put that out there for you guys. Lots of love. Subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see, what discussions you guys want to have. Coaching is available, like I said, First 30, 40 minutes, first phone call free on me. Talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, and then we can kind of go from there. All right, man. The power is yours. D's for Danger, out.